Well, I just beat The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening remaster for the Switch about 4 months ago. But anyway, as I was playing the game, the memories of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild still lingered in my brain. These differences have been nagging at my subconscious for a bit, and even my conscious. Even though I do have plenty of more important things to do or talk about. So, that's why we're here to discuss it today. To get it off of my conscious, to get it off of my subconscious, so I can move on with my life. Plus, Pepperdog saw the stream and wanted some produced Legend of Zelda content, so here you go. Okay, let's start off with the obvious differences. 3D, Breath of the Wild versus top-down, Link's Awakening. The character and world design, the general art style are different. They're way different. This is the case with every Zelda game, except for maybe Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time. But the thing of it is like, they like to vary it up between generations when there's a clear leap in time ahead, or a clear leap in time back, or a clear branch in the storyline in which this goes somewhere else. The world size, way bigger in Breath of the Wild versus Link's Awakening. The world being tile-based versus the free open world. Now, this goes beyond just Breath of the Wild and Link's Awakening. There's a clear delineation of games that are built based on tiles, such as The Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past, the Oracle games, going all the way back to the Nintendo. And this has kind of an effect on combat, more so in Link's Awakening, because everything is done in either a straight line or right by in a radius. Whereas the free open world style of Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, Wind Waker, Twilight's Princess, puts a little bit of variation in puzzle design and enemy combat. Character design, Chibi Link. I like to call him Chibi Link in Link's Awakening, versus the more realistic Breath of the Wild Link. And I have to put realistic in air quotes, but you don't get to see those. So, but again, it's a different thing for each iteration of the game. They have to redesign Link. Wind Waker Link especially. Oh boy. The enemy design is way different in this one versus the other ones. You can tell that they took subtle cues, but they decided to do major redesigns, especially with the Guardians. I don't think I remember any Guardians looking like this before. So, and Breath of the Wild has a day/night cycle. I'm pretty sure Wind Waker has one too, but for the most part, Zelda games take place during the day because days provide nice bright screens. So, there you go. The amount of items. Breath of the Wild has a ridiculous amount of items, most of which don't even feed into the main quest. Mostly it's all about food. There's a way greater assortment of food in Breath of the Wild versus practically every other Zelda game. And there's more things to do in Breath of the Wild because they started taking cues from other open world games. So there's cooking, there's hunting, there's snowboarding, there's horse riding, and riding the animals in the desert that I just can't quite remember the name of right now. However, there is a cool dungeon building minigame in Link's Awakening that I actually have done, despite not being able to publish my dungeons. Okay. Anyway, the game plots are way different too. Breath of the Wild has the simple plot of getting to Calamity Ganon, which is Ganon's final form, and crushing him. That's all the plot is. The subplots and side quests are optional, but they are highly recommended. Those ancient arrows help out a lot. The armor, either the barbarian armor or the ancient armor, they both help out a lot. Link's Awakening has a more esoteric plot. It's probably the most eccentric and different plot out of all the Zelda games. So if this was real life, I'd be screwed. But anyway, side quests are mandatory due to the key item usage and acquisition. On Twitch. There's a pretty big hint that you have to do a giant side quest for in the game that we'll get to in a second. Yeah. But getting these key items acts as a good seg to the main discussion point. Progression in Breath of the Wild versus Link's Awakening. Let's start with Breath of the Wild since it's easier. The idea behind progression here is big jumps in progression fed by little tasks. So you keep doing these little things, it leads up to a bigger jump in progression, which leads to more progression. You gotta pass through a lot of shrines to boost health and stamina, because stamina is used to climb higher cliffs, and of course, health is kind of self-explanatory. Shrines consist of either puzzle stages or combat trials, so you have to solve puzzles or win in a fight to get these spirit orbs, and each shrine is good for a spirit orb, but the thing of it is it takes... Oh, each shrine is also good for a generally upgraded weapon, depending on what you have at the time. You could be ready to fight Calamity Ganon and be like, oh wait, this is a downgraded weapon from the one I got right now. So, here you go. But, like I said before, each shrine gives you one spirit orb, but the thing is you have to use 4 spirit orbs to upgrade either a heart piece or a stamina boost. A boost in the stamina stat. So, this means 4 shrines per. You have to do a mix of combat and puzzle solving to get these small tasks that lead to a greater thing. The optional character side quests usually come with some unique items. Of course, with item durability and item breakage, this is barely even worth doing. The quests involving a set of armor are the ones to do, though, since armor never breaks. You just have to do more stuff to upgrade them at the Great Fairy Fountain. But, of course, how can we forget about Turi Town, the massive side quest that gives you your own house and a new town to trade in. More rupees. Very important side quest. And then there are the optional but highly recommended side quests involving the Divine Beasts. These Divine Beasts are giant creatures that have parts in them that move in very specific ways. Just in case you lived under a rock and haven't played Breath of the Wild yet. Your job is to do these small puzzles to get the energy circuits to pass energy to the terminal to unlock the appropriate Blight Ganon. You know, Thunder Blight, Water Blight, Fire Blight, all that. Thunder Blight Ganon sucks. I will be straight up. I will be like, that's the hardest one. The rest of them are pretty easy. You do all 4 of these, not only do you get awesome helps from the spirits that used to drive these Divine Beasts, but Calamity Ganon starts with half of his health, and you don't have to fight the Blight Ganons right before fighting Calamity Ganon. It's very nice. Now compare this with Link's Awakening's progression. Link's Awakening has a very clearly defined main quest with very clearly defined goals. There are 8 sub-bosses with ever-increasingly complicated dungeons, and key progression items are found in the main quest. I usually get this mixed up because the main quest and the sub-quest, what's known as the item trade quest, are they feel roughly the same to me. It's almost like the item trade subquest is a mandatory part of the main quest because they're so close together. But you actually can beat the game without doing that item trade. And I've skipped some of the better sword acquisition and the better shield level because by the time I was done with that item trade subquest, I was like, man, oh man, I am ready to beat this game. Because it's longer than you think. So the reward for this giant subquest is the direction sequence for the final dungeon, which is really easy to get lost in if you don't know what you're doing. Because this last dungeon that's inside the egg that's on top of the mountain is just the same room design repeated with 4 doors in the middle of each wall. Each room looks exactly the same. So if you don't know where you're going, you're gonna get lost in there infinitely. So basically, what I'm saying is the remaster of Link's Awakening is stooped in early 90s Zelda design, but that's not a bad thing. As a matter of fact, to sum up this comparison, that entire, 10-minute sequence can be summed up in one sentence. Link's Awakening has a way more linear progression model than Breath of the Wild, because they're almost 2 different games, and they're definitely from 2 different time periods. So which one do I like better? I'm really digging Link's Awakening over Breath of the Wild. I really am. Like, the item progression is a bit more pleasing. It's like the dopamine release thing. Instead of giving you all the stuff you need at the beginning of the game and then having you go through it, they space it out evenly to where they force you to get the key items to go back and to get the key items again to do this and to do that. And I just find that a bit more pleasing because it evens out the pacing and you don't get this entire dopamine rush just to be let down late in the game, because that's what I felt towards the end of my playthrough with Breath of the Wild. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a great game. I love exploring in it, but the thing of it is, by the time I've done about the 20th shrine and got just about all 4 of the Divine Beasts, I kind of want to be done with the game. But the thing of it is fighting Calamity Ganon with only 5 hearts, 5 extra hearts for a total of 9, is kind of tough. And not to mention, in order to get the Master Sword in that game, you have to be up to 12 hearts. I think it was. So I'm kind of ready to be done with the game before the game is ready to be done, effectively speaking. Whereas with Link's Awakening, I was ready to be done with the game right at the last dungeon. More specifically, about halfway through, or right after beating that item trade quest to get the directions. I was ready to beat the game, and that's kind of like a good spot to be, where you're at the last stage, you're ready to do it, you go in and do it, and then you're proud. Whereas instead, with Breath of the Wild, because in Breath of the Wild, I came to the realization that brought on this video, I was like, I'm doing the same exact things over and over again. And the game even offers a in-game way to reset that whole thing with the Blood Moon. The Blood Moon respawns all the monsters. And all the items that you picked up on the map. It respawns those too. So you get to do it all over again. I mean, repetitive tasks can be fun for only so long, is basically what I'm saying. The progression is stalled based on item breaking and how much of repetitive task you want to do. But to give Breath of the Wild some points, I mean, the boss fights are way better. There's the Blight Ganons, the Lynels. Lynels are tough. Toughest enemy in any Zelda series so far, in any game. The boss fights in 3 dimensions will always beat a top-down game. I'm sorry. That's just how it goes. Even a side-scroller. They're both good games, though. This one's kind of weird. This one doesn't involve Zelda at all. It's The Legend of Zelda, Link's Awakening, only it's not The Legend of Zelda. They could have just called it Link's Awakening.